But he said to himself, why not me? And, and that's the thing too, like with why not me? Right?
It's like flipping the script, right? Instead of like, why me? Oh, I don't know. It's why not me?
Yeah.
What's
Why
gonna
not me?
stop me? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like really, what is the difference between you and highly successful people in to analyze and rip that apart and think about it? Those people had that why not me attitude, and a lot of times people just give up before they don't even try to begin with. They just think they have zero chance. I hate when I hear parents tell kids like tell kids like, I hear kids say I want to be an NFL football player or whatever. I'm just using that
Yeah,
as an
some high
arbitrary.
bar of entry
And
thing.
parents are like, well, you should just go to college. That's, only like, 1/10 of 1% of, or 100th of one, one out of every 10,000 people actually make it to the NFL. You have no chance of doing that. If you come out of the gate thinking that you have no chance,
You will
your
have no
your chance is
chance,
zero.
right? All right, everyone, welcome. This is Gonzalo Herrero of the Rise 41 podcast. Joining me today is Big Paul Burnett. And today we're going to try something a little bit different. We're going to start hopefully a series that will be helpful for everyone who's seeking to optimize or improve themselves. And the topic for today, for our first episode, is understanding willpower, discipline, and motivation, and how to use them for goal achievement. So first, welcome, Paul.
How's it going?
It's going good. Let's see what we can share and help define this for people. I get the impression, I get this a lot from people that I work with, that I've coached, where they don't understand the difference between these concepts. And of course, if you don't understand something, it's hard to leverage it when you ask them to change habits, behaviors, etc., and they find it hard. So it's important to define these things so that people have a baseline of what they are and can start learning, making decisions. And I believe that willpower is one of those things like muscle, right? That you can actually develop. You can
Yeah,
actually
you can definitely
develop.
get better at it, and it kind of early on. I'd say I was a teenager when I became aware of that I had control over my own destiny to a certain degree. Up until that point, I thought, well, a lot of things were just up to fate, or I was just drifting through life and just doing what I did, and whatever happened happened. And this is kind of like where my love for bodybuilding started. I remember picking up Arnold Schwarzenegger's book. I think it was called On Bodybuilding. It was sort of his biography. And I read it to learn how to get the muscles like Arnold. And what I ended up finding out wasn't the muscle part, it was the mindset part. That was the part that resonated with me. There was an entire chapter, I remember, on basically visualizing things and making those things happen, and understanding that you have control over things, that there's this inner dialogue that goes on in your head,
Yeah.
and that voice in your head can talk you in or out of greatness, really. And then it as you mentioned, there is a process of rehearsing and practicing that, to controlling that voice in your head, because most of the time that inner dialogue that's going on in most people's heads is telling them, oh, you can't do that, you shouldn't
Yeah.
do this, you shouldn't do this, that's too dangerous, that's never going to happen. You talk yourself out of things more than you do to talk yourself into things, usually great,
Right.
great stuff. And I think most people don't even, that voice is going on in your head in the background, and they aren't even aware or conscious of it. It's just there going all the time. And you can actually practice controlling that voice in your head, like bodybuilding, something as simple as, I'm not going to eat that donut. I'm not going to eat it. And that voice in my head that's telling me that I need it, I'm going to tell it, or that hunger in my stomach, I want to tell it no. And it's true with anything. I'm just using that as an oversimplified example of it. But it was really that I remember that reading that book, and it just so happened to coincide with just some great leaders in my life at that time. I had an amazing high school band director. I was a band nerd. I majored in music in college, but we had one of the best high school bands in the country, and it just so happened to coincide with the message that he was delivering to us at the same time, telling us about the voice in your head. And it just clicked with me when I married those two people together that were successful. I was lucky to have good mentors at a young age,
Hmm.
and an open mind. I wanted to do better from it. I grew up in a very poor environment. I grew up in Appalachia. We had nothing. I was dirt ass poor growing up. I just knew I wanted to do more with my life. I wasn't sure how to do that or which way to go. But it all kind of started with that realization that I actually have some control over my destiny and outcomes. That I actually, that voice in my head, the work that I do, the self control, that is, a lot of that is up to me. Where a lot of people don't realize that they actually have any control over that
That
stuff.
they have agency, right? That it's, oh,
Right.
you actually have some control on the outcomes. And it's very easy for people to immediately theorize or go to the, like you said, the why not, right? The what are the limitations? What is going to stop me from that goal? And immediately, like the brain kind of like, if undisciplined, goes there, for whatever reason when there's a challenge.
And it takes effort and consciousness to discipline yourself and to get in the habit of telling that voice to shut up sometimes,
Yeah.
telling that voice that I am going to do these things, because it is constantly trying to talk you out of things,
Hmm.
always,
Yeah.
always. And you can get better at it. And I always had a bit of imposter syndrome too. Like this is another thing I kind of discovered from Arnold's book. He was just a poor kid that grew up in a rural town in Austria,
Hmm.
but he said to himself, "Why not me?" And that's the thing too. Like with why not me, right?
It's like flipping the script, right? Instead of like, why me? Oh, I don't know. It's why not me?
Yeah,
What's
why
gonna
not me?
stop me?
And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, like really, what is the difference between you and highly successful people? In to analyze and rip that apart and think about it,
Yeah.
those people had that "why not me"
Hmm.
attitude, and a lot of times people just give up before they don't even try to
Yeah.
begin with. They just think they have zero chance. I hate when I hear parents tell kids like tell kids like I hear kids say I want to be an NFL football player
Right.
or whatever. I'm just using that as
Yeah.
an
Some high
arbitrary.
bar of entry
And
thing.
parents are like, well, you should just go to college. That's only like 1/10 of 1% of or 1/100th of one. One out of every ten
Right.
thousand people actually make it to the NFL. You have no chance of doing that. If you come out of the gate thinking that you have no chance,
You will
your
have no
your chance is
chance.
zero,
Right. You'll have
right?
no chance.
And what I've found, and the crazy thing is, and I'm not saying everybody is cut out to be an NFL football player. And what I've found in my life as I've tried things, a lot of the stuff that people told me I had zero chance of doing, like building a multi-million-dollar business, which I've done 5 times or 4 times, or becoming a professional bodybuilder,
Right.
uh, uh, and then also doing it over 40. All these things that people told me that were impossible and that you shouldn't even try doing, I was able to do, and I'm not unique or special in any way. And what I found is like if you actually put focused effort into doing these things that seem impossible, and you are diligent and attack them with intent every day, that a
Hmm.
lot of these things that people say are impossible are actually quite within reach.
Absolutely true. One factor that I wanted to mention to you, and this is something that I ran into growing up, was when when you happen to be a person that is, has a certain skill set or level where you find things to be easier in some task or some goal that you have. I find that people that are high functioning like that naturally, when they are tasked with a difficult task that requires effort, that's where they falter. And
Yep.
somebody who may be less talented naturally, through grit and effort and determination, can actually achieve a better outcome,
Yeah.
assuming the
No.
same goal.
No. Yeah. You're 100% right, and that's why I'm such I hate to go back to Arnold. I've always been a huge Arnold
I
fanboy.
mean, he's an American icon of success. I mean, he
I mean,
is.
he to me he is at the pyramid, the top of the pyramid for success. And those principles, and he talks about it in his books. He applied it to multiple areas. Like the
Yeah,
dude was the fucking governor of California. Whether or not he was a good one or not is debatable, but he
yeah,
did it. Dude was a successful actor after he couldn't speak English.
right.
Dude was Mr. Olympia.
Hmm.
Uh, he was people don't most people don't know this. He was a multi-million dollar developer before he ever made any money in the movies.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
Actually,
like one of the biggest construction companies in California. He did
wow,
land development, and construct, built apartment buildings, did all kinds of shit. Guy
wow.
made himself a millionaire. So like he used that, and that's what I'm saying. That same principle for success that he used in bodybuilding, and he just applied it to other things. And it's really just this. First of all, just trying, having the discipline to wake up every day and just do the boring, repetitive shit over and over again, and allowing yourself to achieve great things. Not negative self talk is like I think is one of the biggest diseases that people have
Yeah.
that prevents them from doing things. And then sometimes that's reinforced by people that are around you. God help, I love my family. They're all great, but
Hmm.
my parents were always like, that's too risky. That's, you're not going to have success with that. And
It comes
sometimes,
from that protection, right? Because they want you to not be hurt, to not be
right.
disappointed, and paradoxically, that creates a situation where you can't thrive. They clip your wings before you fly out of the nest. You
Yeah.
know?
And what I found is that if you do want to be highly successful in things in life, you do have to be willing to accept some risk and take some risk.
Right.
I mean,
Absolutely.
it's just how it
It's part
goes.
of the game. It's part of the game. You can't stay safe and thrive and grow because growth and change involves risk in anything. It does.
I don't
Now, it can be
remember
small risk or large risk, but you know.
I don't remember which. There was some. I've read a ton of business books and motivational books over the years, but I don't remember who said this. But it's like you don't win at the blackjack table sitting behind it watching other
Right.
people play.
Right. You got to actually
Yeah.
roll up and sit down.
Yeah.
So, absolutely. So, let's as we dive into the topic, first let's do some quick definitions just to help
Sure.
people, and let's talk about willpower, motivation, and discipline because they're all interlinked, but they're different topics, different areas, if you will. So, willpower, as I put it quaintly, it's the emergency fuel tank. You know, that's willpower. That's what that things get tough, you exert willpower, you power through. Motivation is the spark in the sense that to me, motivation is an emotion. It's like today I feel like working out because I'm motivated, I want change, but like most emotions, it can be fleeting, right? It just comes and goes, you know. It's there's sometimes you can't control that motivation, right? And sometimes you don't feel like doing the thing that it is that you need to do in order to achieve. So motivation can be useful, but it can't be the sole driver because if it's the sole driver, it's gonna falter. It's like we said, it's a spark, but the spark is not the fire. The spark may start the fire, but it's not the fire. And then there's discipline, which is the engine that actually gets you places. Discipline is what today I don't feel a spark. I really don't freaking feel like going to the gym today,
Yep.
but it's leg day and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna do the best I can. That's discipline right there. So
Yeah. I mean,
thoughts.
motivation. And what is it? Jocko Willink. I think his famous saying is, "Discipline equals freedom."
Yeah, yes,
I think that's what he
yes.
says. But motivation is very fleeting. I've met a lot of very motivated failures in my
Fair.
life. All you have to do is be a health and fitness coach after New Year's, and
Yes, that's true.
you
That's
get
true.
100 people like, all right, I'm ready to go.
This is
I'm
the year.
this is the year I'm gonna get into shape. I'm like, all right,
It's like being a
let's.
Dallas Cowboy fan. This is the year. That's terrible. I'm sorry. I
Well,
probably 100 people just switched off this podcast.
I mean, I'm a Commanders fan, so the uh, discipline is really the one that's probably the most important.
Yeah.
It's good to have motivation. But motivation is very fleeting. It's temporary. Discipline is a motive. It doesn't take practice to be motivated. It takes practice to be disciplined.
Yeah.
And same thing with willpower. Willpower is another thing that's practiced as well.
Yeah.
This is sort of the progression of my evolution in things of good mentorships. When I was younger, I progressed in music. When I was a music major in college, actually, my first major in college was music. But I was also participating in this activity called drum corps. And I was in a drum and bugle corps that was the world champion drum and bugle corps
Oh
at
wow.
that
Okay.
time. Kind of a nerdy thing. People that are familiar with drum corps would know what I'm talking about, but it's a very niche thing. But one of the things I learned from our leaders in that was they constantly talked about pushing yourself, learning how to push. And I learned the Arnold stuff in the high school of controlling your internal voice. And then I paired that up with the ability to learn how to push.
Yeah.
And being disciplined is part of pushing yourself because there's days you don't feel like getting up and doing that cardio.
Yeah.
There are days that you don't feel like working 12 hours when you're running a business.
Yeah. And you have to. You gotta
But
take care of your
you,
clients and stuff.
yeah, you have to learn. And pushing is another thing that takes practice. You get better at it. And a lot of people in the gym, like I see a lot of people that are motivated and are disciplined and do make it to the gym, but they never progress.
Hmm.
I see a lot of people that are motivated and disciplined and get into business, but they never progress their business. They grow to a certain point, they never get past that point.
Yeah.
And there's another factor in that equation, and that is the ability to push beyond your existing limits. And
Right.
and it's just little incremental things that add up. And this is why I love bodybuilding so much.
Yeah.
And we can equate it down to progressive overload in the gym.
Hmm.
If I do 2.5 pounds more this workout than I did in the previous workout with the same in the same rep range, I know that I've made progress in the gym. And
Right.
if I do that over 5 years, I have made incremental progress. If I just keep lifting the same weights over and over, I can be disciplined, I can be motivated, but if I keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, I'm never going to progress
You're gonna
and move
stay.
forward. I'm
Right.
going to
You're gonna
stay in the
stay in
same
that
place I
rut.
am right now.
Yep.
And so that was another thing that clicked with me. And this was in college, is that discipline and controlling that voice in your head alone weren't enough, that you also had to learn how to push.
You
And
do.
you'll hear guys in the special forces talk about that, like the guys that make it through, Navy SEALs.
Yeah, like buds training. Yeah.
You make it through buds training. Like really, they aren't it's not the most athletically gifted guy that wins. It's the guy that's can push, that has
Yeah.
the mental toughness to push through things.
Yeah.
And pushing is another thing that you can get better at. You can it's and this is why it drives me nuts when guys worry about overtraining
Yeah.
and going too hard in the gym. I'm like, dude, don't even fucking worry about that. Don't worry about working too hard. Don't worry about work-life balance. Don't worry about overdoing things until you've actually overdone it.
Yeah. And then you'll really know. Then
Yeah,
you'll
then
really
you'll
know.
really know.
Yeah.
The thing is I think you're capable of a lot more than what you think you are. And that's the thing that I think people, I work with some professional athletes too. Not all of them. There's some that just get by on talent alone, but the majority of professional athletes have learned how to push themselves to extremes.
Right.
They're able to do their capacity for work is way beyond that of what a normal person is. Same thing when you look at people that are highly successful in business. You look at and most billionaires, when you look at most billionaires, they all work 12-hour days,
Right.
7 days a week.
Yeah. They're
Yeah,
comfortable being uncomfortable to do the
yeah,
things that they need to do.
they have practiced and learned how to push themselves to the
Yeah.
point where it just becomes second nature. But that is another thing that takes intent and work, and you can do it. So, while I think discipline is important, while I think motivation is important, while I think mindset is important, it's not enough by itself. You have to push beyond your existing limits. You have to continue to do that.
Okay. So now Something else, and you kind of alluded to it, is that there are warning signs when. So we've defined that discipline definitely trumps motivation for long-term success, for
Yep.
sustained progression towards your
Yep.
goal. And then there are burnout signs, and we've kind of alluded to it. Burnout is not quite as easy or simple as one would imagine. And a lot of times you don't truly feel burnout when you think you have burnout.
Yeah.
Definitely define that. So you got to be aware of that. Like push until you can push no more. Really. By the way, using the bodybuilding exercise example, recently, in my case, I started growing again after being stuck in a rut, and part of it was I changed my training methodology. I'm following the is it the Justin Peters
Oh,
style?
Jordan Peters. Yeah.
Jordan Peters. Why do I always get, because it's
Yeah.
Justin Harris? I always get them mixed up. But anyway, the Jordan Peters
Yeah.
style
Talk
of
about a
like,
guy that pushes. Holy shit.
oh my God, yeah,
That guy
and
is
he made
intense.
me he made me realize, like, after listening to some of his tutorials and so on, I'm like, am I really pushing? Am I really? And I discovered very quickly that there were reps in reserve that I didn't know I had, as long as I controlled that weight, and it was eye opening. And I've had the best progress in the last 2 months that I've had in the last 2 years, just
Jordan is
because
a
of that.
disciple of Dante Trudell, who was my original trainer.
Uh-huh.
Jordan came from that DC training
Okay.
tree, and Dante was always about finding out where your actual limits are. Like he talked
Uh-huh.
about, like when people stop at 10 reps on a leg press,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
probably could have done 20.
Uh-huh.
You just got uncomfortable at 10,
Uh-huh.
and you stopped at 10 because it was uncomfortable.
Right.
But and that's what I'm talking about with pushing. Like a lot of times, like people get uncomfortable and they think that's their limit, just for anything, right? Work,
Yeah.
um, gym, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about with pushing. Most people are capable of so much more than they think they can do.
Yeah. They are. So the next thing, now let's talk about specifics. Let's talk about things that will actually move the move the needle. And the first thing to do when you have a goal is to define the damn thing. What is
Yeah,
it
I
that
mean
you're trying to
that's
accomplish?
important.
Right? And for that, and I'm not going to dive into this deeply because anyone can Google this. It's very simple, but it's the idea of, if you don't know how to define what it is that you're trying to do or achieve, use the SMART goal framework. And what it is, it's very simple. And like I said, if you want more detail, you can Google it, but it's an acronym, and it means specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. And that's a lot of words, but what does it mean? So specific, a specific goal clearly defines what you want to achieve. I want to lose 10 pounds. That's a very clear goal. I want to lose 10 pounds of fat, more specifically, probably is what you should be thinking. But anyway, is it measurable? Yes, it is. We have a number, 10 pounds, perfectly measurable. Is it achievable? You analyze your goal. Is this something I can do? And yes, absolutely, I could lose 10 pounds, for example. Is it relevant? Does it align with your overall objectives and priorities when you set this goal? Is this something that makes sense for what you're trying to pursue? And then time bound. Give yourself a specific deadline or time frame, and that could be, I'm going to lose 10 pounds in 3 months. Say, probably more achievable than if I say I'm going to lose 10 pounds in a month, which would be a lot more aggressive and a lot more difficult. So anyway, Paul, thoughts on
It's
that?
Yeah, and I mean, we've used the SMART technique a lot in business and stuff. It's part of project management. Exactly, that's exactly which. I did a lot of project management in IT over the years, and this is exactly what we use for putting projects together, holding people accountable for projects. I heard the analogy one time that it's like you're like a ship at sea with no port, or
Yeah.
you don't have to be in a port at certain times, so you're just going to wander around forever. And I've
Yep.
told this people that I coach in physique enhancement, like guys that want to get in shape. I said, if you want to get in the best shape of your life, do a bodybuilding show.
Yeah. It'll force you. It'll
Yeah,
give you
you're
time.
when you know that you have to be on stage in your underwear October 1st
Yeah, that can
in
be
front
daunting
of in front
for
of
sure.
500 people,
Yeah,
you're going to make sure you do your cardio. You're going to make sure you're hitting your, and we can break these down into specific goals.
right.
We have measurable goals. We can map it out. Like I know everything in physique enhancement is very measurable. If you need to lose 20 pounds of fat, we can even, we know that's 70,000 calories. And if we do 2 pounds a
Right,
week, that's 1,000 calories a day deficit. I mean, we can break these down into small, and that's what you do in project management too. You break down
right.
big chunks,
You create
big
your Gantt
goals
chart,
into,
if you will.
yeah,
Right.
your Gantt chart, right? And
Yeah.
then and then you can do this with anything really.
Yeah. That's, by the way, that's the second step. Let's break it down like a fraction, right? Take this large goal. Let's use the example you chose, doing a show, doing a bodybuilding show. We break that down into pieces that are achievable, stages, steps that you can track.
Well, it's the same thing with people that set a goal of, and entrepreneurship's another one. Like where like people wait for the perfect timing to start a business.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, there is no perfect time to start a business. You just do it. And I'll tell you this, when you know you got to pay your mortgage,
The perfect time is now.
yeah, when you know you got to pay your mortgage, you're going to put in the work to make that happen.
Yeah, no, for sure. Or people, I always hear people, as a parent, you always hear like these young couples, like, we're going to wait until the right time to have that kid. I'm like, there's never going to be a right time. That's going to be when it happens, Like, there is no perfect time, because you're always going to have a situation where, like, some things are going your way and some things are not. So you have to, at some point, you have to be comfortable with pulling the trigger, and
I will
making
say
things
this:
happen.
there are some people that are chronic over planners. I have run into those where they spend more time working on the perfect plan than they actually do executing it.
Hmm.
And I ran into that a lot in IT because I worked with a lot of really brilliant, smart engineers, and sometimes I'd be like, dude, look, we just got to get to work on it.
Yeah.
We'll fix and that's another thing I think you got to keep in perspective. It's good to have the goals. It's good to make sure they're measurable. It's good to make sure that we have a plan, but you got to realize that waiting for the perfect plan, you're the guy that's just moving forward is going to be ahead of you.
Yeah, yeah. There's something to be said about analysis paralysis right here. Of, like you said, like, I want everything to be perfect to ensure success. But the thing is, especially with things that are complex, it's never going to be perfect and you will never be able to ensure success.
Yeah.
You can hedge it. You can certainly
Oh,
take,
certainly. Yeah.
you can take precautions to ensure success or improve your odds of success. But with something, especially something ambitious, it's not guaranteed that there's success, but you have to at some point execute. At some point, you have to, like, just, you know, bite the
Cal-
bullet, if you will, and go.
Calculated risk.
Yes.
You don't want to be reckless and not have a plan, but waiting on the perfect plan is also not going to lead you to success a lot of times too. I definitely ran into that a lot in project management. It
Yeah,
was
absolutely.
sometimes there's going to be things that are just going to be unknown, and we're going to have to figure it out as we
Yeah.
go.
Project management is part of what I do for a living. So I agree
I did
with
a
you
lot of project.
100%.
I
Yeah.
managed the project managers. I did a lot of it.
Yeah. Program project management will teach you all of these things
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure.
When I saw smart, I'm like, oh, that's project management.
Yeah. I kind of give myself away there. I know. But that's okay.
Somebody's a
This
project manager.
Yeah, but these concepts, though, a lot of these concepts that are specific perhaps to these industries, to IT or development and so forth, can certainly apply and be
They work.
used. Yeah,
There's a reason why
abs-
they're used.
yeah, absolutely. And they can be applied in, non-traditional ways to for you to achieve your whatever goal it is that you have. I don't know. Maybe your goal is save $10,000 by the end of the year, have a nest egg. I don't know. So whatever,
Yeah.
you can you can use these. You can absolutely use these. I mean, I'm hoping in the future to have an episode where I can show, or we can show people how to use the Kanban board for everyday stuff, which is
Yeah.
such a simple concept once you understand it. But I have seen many minds blown when you explain how simple it is to have swim lanes and work in progress limits. That's it.
Yep.
you know. Anyway, let's talk about the next step. Now you've defined your goal, you've broken it down into steps. You have an idea what it is that you want to achieve. Third step, at least in the methodology as I have it laid out here, would be to build your support squad. So accountability partners. Again, using the analogy, let's go with what we know of the bodybuilding pro, your coach. This is your accountability partner, right? The people around you that know that you have this goal. Community can provide pressure and encouragement, of course, because now you've stated publicly, I'm going to do a show, like you said,
Yeah.
October 5th. Oh boy. So I'm going to be up there near naked in front of a lot of people. And now all your friends who are hopefully encouraging you in your community of support are going to be like, cool. How can we help you? And you might find yourself at a social event and your friend will be like, that piece of cake you're about to go. And you might not want that, bro. So that could be support in a way, or encouragement when you don't want to go to the gym, say, and that friend or wife or significant other goes, you're going to want to not skip because you have that date on October 5th. And this is a step towards it. So
That's great.
yeah.
And then the lone wolf with the wolf pack progress. I guess that's your training partner in this example.
Yes, absolutely. It's somebody that's getting you like, come on, let's go, let's do this. But you're doing it because you are doing it. You are the lone wolf, so to speak. But it's the wolf pack because your accountability partner's there with you,
Yep.
pushing, helping. You got that guy next to you going. I have this one guy at the gym that goes lightweight, lightweight. He's a big Ronnie Coleman fan. Lightweight. I'm like, I'm dying here. He's like, no, you're not lightweight. That guy. Definitely, if you have those people, leverage them because they want to see you succeed. These are your friends. These are your hopefully your acquaintances, the people that will help you. All right, the next step, and we kind of alluded to this before, and it's the prepping for chaos. Anticipate those setbacks. So, using our example, missed workout, time crunches. Today, I actually left work 30 minutes too late and I had to make a calculation. Can I make it to this podcast, which is very important to me? And do I skip my workout or do I do a partial workout? And my brain told me, well, here's the prepping for chaos. A partial workout is better than no workout. And guess what?
I would have pushed back 30 minutes for you.
But I didn't know that.
Yeah, all you had to do was ask.
It was my risk assessment. There you go. But the point being, like, I mean, all I miss is calves, and calves is my strongest part, so I'm good to go. So, but we get the audience gets the point, right? You have to be able to, if you can anticipate a setback, come up with a contingency plan. When possible. And if you can do it in advance, all the better. This is similar also, using again the prepping analogy, prepping your food, say, if you're on a diet.
Mm-hmm.
Having that food ready for you ahead of time so you don't get hungry and now I'm starving and I've got nothing and I made a bad choice, for example, or a choice that's not helping me further my goals. And lastly is the prep for chaos. Discipline is doing it even when it sucks. And that's, again, contingency plans, because you will have those low energy, low motivation days. So have a plan for that, whatever that may be. Even if it's just telling your wife, hey, honey, I know I'm going to totally want to not go to the gym today. So kick my butt. Tell me to go. Tell me not to be lazy, whatever that may be.
I forget who it was that I heard say it. It was some high-end professional bodybuilder, but he said it's the workouts you don't want to do that are the most important.
Yeah, I can see that.
And I'll say this too, talking about chaos, and this is another thing I think that people get very frustrated with, is that progress is not linear.
Yes, good point.
People get I see guys that get very frustrated and upset, and a lot of times they'll give up. Mm-hmm. Because they've hit a stumbling block or they've had some sort of setback. And it's funny, like there is a disproportionate, I don't remember, guys that are millionaires and billionaires disproportionately have declared bankruptcy versus the people that are just middle class.
Makes sense because they're more
It's
risk.
because they are willing to take risk,
Right.
and they are willing to accept setbacks happen, and they get back up and they do it over again. And it's the same thing too. Like, you talk to anybody who's been a professional athlete or a professional bodybuilder, there's been a lot of setbacks. I've had multiple surgeries.
Right.
I've had big injuries. I've had time. I'm recovering from a shoulder surgery right now. There's, and then that's the thing. Like, a lot of people will hit a stumbling block, or they just get stuck. They're not making progress, and they give up. And it's the ability to be able to just, once again, I go back to pushing again,
Hmm.
to keep pushing and keep grinding and keep chipping away, and eventually you will bust through. And I found that a lot of times progress comes in spurts. Is what I found is, like, you'll have these breakthroughs. You grind away at something for a really long time, and it seems like you're just not making any progress, and then bam, all of a sudden you bust
Yeah.
through. And
Yeah.
music was sort of the ultimate for that for me, being a musician when I was younger, because you would practice a lick 100 times and you would not get it. You would
Yeah.
not get it. And then that 101st time,
Yeah.
then you get it. And then the
Oh, I'm
hundred
a
and
guitar
second.
player. I get this. I get this. I understand
Yeah, so
this. Yeah.
there's a, I think it was Malcolm Gladwell. It was talked about the 10,000 hours to perfection
Yeah.
rule.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
it's basically, it's repetition. You have to put a lot of repetition into something to perfect it.
Yeah.
And this goes back to the whole ability to control your mind, push through these hardships. Sometimes the roadblocks are mental, sometimes they're physical,
Yeah.
sometimes they're psychological. And to just keep chipping away. And I think that is a very, 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 very important, um, a very important part of the equation.
Yeah, realizing that thing you mentioned about realizing that progress is non-linear is very critical. I have found that. My wife have found that. She's also a lifter, um, and she went through a period there where like she was working on her deadlift and it just would not progress. It just would not progress for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. She's like, "What am I doing wrong? The food is good, the rest is good. Why am I not breaking through?" And she got really frustrated, and then she got it. And it was that realization of sometimes it's it's the graph is definitely not a diagonal smooth line. It can be up and down, but up, as long as the general trend is in the
Yep.
direction you need it to be, that's what matters.
Well, that's why you can't get too caught up in the immediate. Sometimes you have to consider the larger picture.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are very, very focused on immediacy. They If they don't have immediate gratification, then they give up on things.
Yep.
And one of the things that I think that you have, just another thing that you need to perfect, is, if you want to be successful at stuff, is you have to embrace delayed gratification on
Yes.
on
That's
things.
important. It's very important to be aware that you will grind at something and it might be months before you see that outcome. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
This is, yeah.
with playing guitar. I mean, you'll just try a chord over and over and over and over
Mhm.
and over, or a really difficult lick, and it's just not working for you, and then just all of a sudden it happens.
Well, what I found is teaching other people guitar, a lot of my students, if they could make it past the first 3 months, when they from first picking up a guitar to the third month where they actually could do 3 or 4 chords, that right there, that breakthrough, that was the breakthrough. And it was exactly like you said. They would stumble and try it and they can't get it and it's hard and it doesn't sound right. And I'm asking you to practice an hour every day to like get it and get it. And so many of those students, just didn't have the grit, I guess, or the
And
determination to
I
make it
think
past those 3 months,
I think something people don't realize about playing guitar. It's when you first start learning, it's very uncomfortable. It's
It
painful.
is. It is. Getting those calluses is not it's not easy if
And
you have
twisting
soft
your
hands.
hand and all that, all,
Yeah,
the
holding it
stretching,
properly.
all the,
Yeah,
getting your hand bent for all the chords is really,
yeah.
really uncomfortable and weird. Not
Yeah,
that
people
I'm,
don't realize that Eddie Van Halen had fingers like literally like pistons, like from from being one of the best, arguably one of the best guitar players in history. And
Did
he
it all
built
with a
that.
cigarette in his mouth too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Man,
Well,
miss that guy.
you can tell when somebody has spent thousands of hours perfecting something when they make it look easy,
Yeah,
uh,
effortless, right?
effortless. Yeah,
Like a gymnast. Like I always think of gymnasts when I think of that. Like they do these floor routines, or the horse, or the rings, or whatever it is, and you see them, and it's like this flow, and it's this beautiful. It's human poetry in motion, basically, and you go like, how in the world? And it's like you said, just 10,000 hours,
it's
of
10,000 hours. Yeah,
getting
like
on there, getting on there. So
like people watch Steph Curry shoot a
yeah,
three pointer, and they're like, man, it looks so easy, but they don't see the 10,000 shots that he took
to get that
to get that
skill, to
right.
calculate that and be able to like just triangulate that immediately and just let fly.
Yep.
Yep, it's incredible. So, all right, let's see. Time management, step 5. Let's
I'm
talk
doing
a
a
little bit.
terrible job with time management on this podcast.
I know.
I talk
I'm
a
gonna.
lot.
We may need to sprint. We may need to sprint here a little bit to get the goal, but we'll see. We'll see. I think we can do this. So, time management, really simple for those of you who may be new to this, all of this whole topic of like achieving goals, willpower, and discipline, and getting things done. So, time blocking, it's critical because you're dedicating time to develop that skill or doing the thing that you need to do in order to achieve your goal. And you set it aside, you take away all distractions, and you use that time for whatever it is. This could be, if it's a business thing, reading a book that's about this topic that you're trying to work with in your business. This could be, I don't know, like we were talking about, setting the time to take those 10,000 shots, right? Every day, an hour on the court. For those of us who are like super ADHD like me, there's this thing, and again, we can talk about it, and it's the Pomodoro method. It's famous, and it's very
I'm very
simple.
familiar with it.
Yep, this is very, very useful for somebody who doesn't have the skill yet of time management, because it makes it very concrete. And it's, you work for 25 minutes, then you take a 5-minute break. You work 25 minutes at the thing that you need to do. You take a 5-minute break, and after 4 rounds of that, maybe you'll take a 15 or 13-minute break. Super simple, but it
Yeah,
works.
I struggle with time management. Even still, I'm ADHD, and I have a tendency to jump from task to task,
Yeah, yeah,
which can be a superpower sometimes because
it can be.
when I was a CEO, I could, my capacity for work was like I could do as much work as like three people.
Right, right. You can
Um,
do context switching very quickly, right?
yeah,
So,
I can switch from task to task very quick, but
mhm.
it also can be a problem when you're not structured.
Right, right. Or if you're, there's a difference between doing this in a proactive way versus a reactive way, right? When things are changing. And then that's another skill. That will be another episode of this podcast about improvisation, how that's
Yeah.
it's a sign of genius, and improvisation, ironically, is its own skill also, for sure. There are
Yep.
certain principles that you can use to become very good at improvising and doing adaptation and solution making. So, um, another thing for time management, carving out time. We talked about it, reserving time for whatever it is that you need to achieve. Make a habit of that. And then another thing that I had on my notes here is like, why no is your most productive word. And why is not your most productive work? Because when you're doing the thing and somebody comes up to you, I need you to do X, you're going to say no. You're
Yeah.
going to say no because you're going to be focused on that task. So that's why how no can be your most productive word if you use it in order to, and again, don't be a dick, like there are certain things that you can't say no to. But 90% of distractions that happen when you're trying to achieve something are things that can be done later or deferred, versus things that are truly emergencies. True
Or
emergencies
delegate.
don't happen very often.
Delegate it.
Yes, you can delegate it.
You know about the
Absolutely.
Eisenhower matrix, right? Eisenhower
No, no,
matrix.
actually, go ahead. Tell me all about it.
It's where you you prioritize work into quadrants. You can look it up. It's
Okay.
there's urgent, there's important, there's unurgent and unimportant. And
Uh-huh.
and most people spend a lot of their time in the unurgent, unimportant.
In that quadrant right here in the far corner where we don't
Yeah,
need to be.
yeah, so it's or it's, and one of the things that and I had to learn in management, you want to be there and help people, but like one of the biggest enemies of being a CEO and managing a big staff. I mean, I've had staffs with over 100 plus people. I've had to manage is the got a minute meeting.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh
That
yeah.
can melt your day, man.
Yeah.
And I deal with it now too, with having I'm a low level social media celebrity, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I get the messages all the time in my DMs. Hey, you got a minute for a question?
Hmm.
I mean, I get dozens of them a day, and if I answered all of them, I would never ever have time for my paying clients.
Yeah. Just today I had a meeting with a contributor this is in a text setting, and this person said, and they truly meant, I need the first 10 minutes of this 3 hour meeting to set some things in motion and explain it to the group. That turned into 30 minutes, not through, just
Yep.
organically. It happened. So what happened? There were items that had to be pushed. There were items that had to be pushed that would have been covered in the meeting. And I'm not blaming that person for doing that, but being aware of that is important because I did ask them to time box it at a minute 30. I was like, okay, that's all I can do. I gave you three X time, but then, if I had not done that, it could have continued organically and done even more damage to the allotted time, if you will.
We could do a whole
So
thing on the Eisenhower matrix.
nice.
I'm going to send you a thing on it, but it's so there's the four quadrants. There's urgent, not urgent, important, not important. So like urgent, important would be time sensitive, things that require your attention right now. It needs to be done right away. There's not urgent but important. Those would be like long-term projects, things that you need.
Yeah.
There's this is the thing where I get myself in trouble. There's definitely stuff I need to do,
Right.
but it's like I can put it off. So I have a tendency to not do those things. That's the ADHD in me,
Yeah.
and that does take some discipline. Then there's the not important, not urgent, which is, that telemarketer call on your phone, looking at Instagram, or that
Yeah.
person that says, "Hey, can you do this?" You just need to just say no to that shit. That's the one you're talking about. And then there's the
Absolutely.
not important but urgent. That's the got a minute meeting.
Yeah. 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 It's
So
not important but urgent, and you have to
so
recognize
really,
that.
like what really the area that people forget about and don't live in is the not urgent but important area. You're probably better at that since you're a project manager. Project managers tend to be good at that kind of stuff.
You become aware of it, right?
Yeah, you become aware of it. These are the long-term goals that are kind of nebulous. They do carry great importance, but you tend to put them off.
So, all right. So let's see. Racing to the end here.
Sorry.
Nah, we're fine. We are fine. I think there's a lot of value in when we're finished with this description for somebody who really wants to get a handle on how to achieve goals. So, next step, building resilience and reducing stress, which is part of it, right? Because you are going to be doing things that, like we mentioned before, are uncomfortable. You're going to be pushing, you're going to be
Hmm.
exerting your willpower. So, what can you do to build resilience, reduce your stress? So, uh, as I've got listed here, mindfulness is important. Be aware of what it is that you're trying to achieve and be aware of where your stress levels are and how you engage with that. You can do this with simple walks to clear your head, let you plan. Uh, Lifting weights, even we use that because we're both bodybuilding enthusiasts, but it could be any kind of activity like that. It could be running for those who like to jog or run. Um, these are activities that will reduce your stress, and with your stress levels being reduced, you have more gas in the tank for discipline and for pushing when you do need to push. So, I mean,
And some of that's mindset. I forget who said it, but there's a quote just to stay medium about things. I think a
Yes.
lot of times people create their own stress from worrying about things that are out of their control, or they get focused on things that don't matter.
Like the what ifs that might never happen, but
The
you,
what ifs.
yeah.
Another one, another good one. I've read so many fucking motivational business books is the 90-10 principle. That was a Stephen Covey one where he may have gotten it from somewhere else, but 90% of the things that people spend most of their time worrying about the 10%
Yeah.
and don't worry about the 90. And there's 90% of the things that happen in your life are within your control, but they spend all their time focused on that 10% that is
That's
completely out of
outside. Yeah.
that's completely out of their control. And that stuff, and it's this is one thing with mindfulness that takes some practice, is you have to just give that up to fate. Like you just
Yeah.
there's certain things that you can't waste emotional energy worrying about. That takes practice. That takes
Yeah.
practice to let that
That
go.
letting go, right? Of letting
Yeah.
go of like being able like to say like it is out of my hands and
Yeah,
focus on the 90.
but the thing is like people, it's in that this is the whole idea with the Stephen Covey with the 90-10 principle is that people spend so much of their time worrying about that the shit they actually can affect, they don't worry about.
Right. It falls by the wayside
It falls by the
because
wayside. They don't control the variables that they can control. And I see it a lot in bodybuilding. A lot of guys worry about the what ifs and stuff, like especially like with contest prep. They're like,
yeah.
what if this guy shows up? What if this happens at the end? I'm like, or what if, and I'm like, bro, control what you're doing today. Do your work,
Yeah.
control the variables you can control, and get in. It's the same thing in business. Like, what if I get an audit? I mean, like, it's all
Then
you can
you'll
do is be
handle it.
prepared. All you
Right.
can do is be prepared for that audit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. If you get an audit, it'll happen and you'll deal with it,
Yep.
hopefully. So,
And a lot of
uh,
times, the stuff that 10% that you spend all this effort worrying about,
mhm.
I find most of the time it never happens.
Right. Right. And that's
It
what I
never
was
actually
saying with the what
happens.
ifs, right?
Yeah.
Like it never happened. You never had to worry about it. So, and another thing within this building resilience and reducing stress, of course, be aware of signs of burnout and how to handle. Sometimes it is okay to let go of the gas a little bit to gather your strength
Sure.
again,
I
So
try
be
to
aware.
program in some time every day to either, spend a little bit of time with my family,
Yeah.
to do something fun. I mean, my guilty pleasure is I love playing video games.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
work 10, 12-hour days, pretty much 7 days a week, but then I'll play video games for an hour or two at the
Hey,
end of
get
the
that
day.
dopamine, man.
Yeah, I
That'll
mean,
do it.
I just enjoy playing video games. It's kind of takes my mind. I have a very active mind.
Yeah.
It takes or I'll play my guitar.
Yeah.
I haven't been doing that much lately, but that's another thing where it requires all my attention to play the guitar. That it
Mhm.
takes my brain off of all the chaos that's going on in my brain.
Yeah.
It's an outlet.
Yeah, guitar playing, musical instruments in general. I play, piano, guitar, bass, all
Yeah,
the
yeah. I play
things.
piano,
So you
guitar,
know how
and
it is.
yeah.
And when you get in that flow state, when you're playing and it's just flowing, oh my God, that
Only a
is
musician will understand.
yes. So for those of you who are not musicians, you may want to pick up an instrument, man. But anyway,
There was
anyway.
once upon a time I wanted to be a professional musician, but that, I realized that it didn't pay the bills as well as
I was gonna say
information.
it kind of worked out for you though.
Information security is a better
Yeah.
career choice.
I was gonna say it absolutely worked. It worked out really well for you, so which is why we're talking. All right, so next thing, let's see. Step 7, tracking and celebrating. Hey, journal your progress and keep track of it, whatever it is that you're trying to achieve, because it's probably something hard and it's probably something worth keeping like some kind of memoir or in this. If nothing else, you'll have a lessons learned for the next time you try and do something else, some other goal, and you'll have like a record. And I don't know about you, Paul, but for me, like every once in a while, seeing those old logbooks, like it's like, wow, I used to like really like my first workout ever. You know what it was when I was like 100 pounds heavier? It was to do 12 push-ups.
That's
That was my
crazy.
first workout.
I'll do this with my coaching clients, Gonzalo. I will
Mhm.
keep every progress pic they've ever sent me.
Oh, great.
I keep
Yeah,
it, and like every once in a while I'll get guys that'll kind of stumble with motivation. You're like, man, I'm just not
sure.
making any fucking progress. And what I'll do in that situation is I'll take their very first check-in picture with me and put it next to the one where they're at now, and I present them those to show them, and they're like, holy shit, I had no idea that I because progress is really difficult, and this is why journaling, I like progress journaling.
Mhm.
Progress is really hard to see day to day.
Yeah,
It's impossible, really.
yeah.
You don't, and I think a lot of people get frustrated, and the more advanced you get at something, the slower the progress becomes.
Yes.
And that's why I think that's why people start things and they love and enjoy things really quick. Guitar would be an example, a fine
Hmm.
example. Learn how to play those first five basic chords or whatever they are. I don't remember G, C, A, B, D chord, whatever
Yeah,
is really easy and you can progress super quickly. But then when you start progressing into bar chords and the other more advanced stuff and
yeah.
learning different scales and modes and
C
things
major
like that,
seventh, adding the ninth. Whoa. You
yeah,
know?
then it gets really hard and your progress slows down.
Yeah,
So it might take you just as long to learn that one advanced chord as it did to learn the first five chords. I
yeah,
see it in bodybuilding too, as you get more advanced or powerlifting. Like guys might put 50 pounds on their bench press in their first year.
yeah.
After you've been lifting
Right.
for 5 years, you might put on 10 pounds in a year.
Maybe if you're
Yeah,
lucky.
maybe, right? Yeah, so the progress becomes slower and more difficult as you advance. And I think that's where every once in a while reflecting on where you started and where you are at now is helps with motivation and putting things in perspective.
For sure. And then, we alluded to this. There are small dopamine hits from these small victories, so keep those in mind,
Yeah,
which is exactly what you said. Like kind of like even though the milestones may be further apart, there are small victories in the way that you should acknowledge. Like every time you do something, whatever that little milestone is, towards your goal, and yeah, and I'll just leave it at that. Like it's important to celebrate and recognize the large milestones, but also the small victories that you will accrue as you move forward
I
with
think I
whatever it
got
is.
ahead of myself. I'm looking at step 8 and 9. I already talked about that.
That's okay because it makes sense. And so, adapting and overcoming are steps 8 and 9. We'll just call them out for the sake of completion. But these are important things that we have talked about because I think these matter at the entire journey, beginning and end. First, that the setbacks aren't a failure unless you actually stop. That's
Yep.
important. Let's just call that out explicitly because a lot of people, you will face setbacks. It will happen. There is no way you're going to do something complex and difficult and off the bat everything's going to fire on every cylinder and there you are. That's not going to happen.
What
So,
I see it with bodybuilding all the time. Like guys say, it's
yeah,
impossible to be a pro bodybuilder. I'm like, no, it's not. It takes 10 years.
it's hard.
10 years
It's
is a long
lengthy.
time. Ten
Yeah.
years of being disciplined with
Yeah.
your training, your diet, your everything that you do. That it's the same thing with being a great guitar player.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Probably at
It's
least a decade, I would say,
yeah.
of
It would
really
probably
intentful progress.
yeah.
I'm a
Of
very mediocre.
practicing and learning and more technique and more music theory and more yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
a very mediocre guitar player. Just full disclosure. I didn't pick it up until my 30s, but
Oh wow. Okay.
I was a tuba player.
That's
I
a
was
little
a
different.
tuba and piano. Tuba and
Yeah.
piano. I was a very good tuba player.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's see. More things about adapting and overcoming that we need to mention. Adjust timelines and tactics without losing the goal. Sometimes you have to adjust. Look, there's a reason in project management, like waterfall can work for certain things. I'm an agile guy. Why? Because I like adjusting timelines and tactics in order to achieve my goal. As new information comes along, as new processes come online, as whatever it may be. Again, depending on your goal and the path that you may have new information, you may have new approaches, which will mean that you might need to adjust timelines. You were saying, for example, about the even though we can do this numerically, with say calories on a prep that you want to lose X amount of pounds. Well, maybe if you do 1,000 calorie reduction, that might be really hard for somebody. That may be something that
Sometimes
they
the
can't
body just
handle.
doesn't cooperate.
Yeah.
That
Yeah. So
happens.
so you may need to adjust that
Yep.
in order to achieve success. And that's okay because you don't lose the goal,
Yep.
which is the important part. Yeah. And I like this. I forget where I got this quote, but be stubborn with the goal, but flexible with the
I
plan.
like that. Yeah, I never heard that one before.
Yeah, I forget where I picked that up. It's. I wish I'll have to go find the quote and credit the person for sure. And then
I'll just reiterate
finally,
before you move on.
yes.
And I think I see this, and I wish I could go back and talk to the young me a little bit more, but especially in young people, a lot of people get frustrated and give up when things don't go according to plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just got to keep pushing through it. Just,
There's that resilience that we were talking about, right? That
yep,
resilience and that
just keep,
willpower,
just
like
keep
just
grinding away.
keep grinding. Yep. Because again, and it goes back to that example, especially if you're somebody who has the natural talent or ability to make things easy, you may not be comfortable with the grind, with an actual obstacle because it's easy for you.
Yep.
And you've never had to actually really grind at something because you're naturally good at X, Y, or Z. So, absolutely, keep grinding. Don't give up. This is where willpower comes into play. Exert that willpower, exert that discipline, screw the motivation that day.
Yep.
Just get it done. So, and then the last one, crossing the finish line. Yay! Finishing strong. So, is there, so managing fatigue, again, we've used this example the whole way. Let's wrap up with it. You do your contest, you place, you get your card. Now you're fatigued. Now you're coming out of that, I assume. And that will require some adaptation, I assume, after weeks and weeks of, pre prep and then constant prep. And that will take some managing and some, you know. And the other thing is the avoiding the screw it rush job at the end when you near that goal. And again, to use the it's I don't know how common this is. This is more your area, Paul, than mine, but is it possible as you approach the show that somebody can screw up that last week?
Oh,
Like
all
after
the fucking time. All like I most of the time I have to save guys from themselves.
Yeah. Because they're like, right there, you're right there.
They think some last minute Hail Mary pass is going to make the difference.
Right.
And some drastic thing at the end. And really, really, it just comes down to just keep doing what you were doing.
Yeah.
The,
Don't just take more DNP, okay? Don't do that.
the hard work is done.
Yeah.
And if you're not ready by the end, you aren't ready.
Right.
It's just how it is.
And you're not gonna be ready because you do some crazy thing at the end.
No.
It's just not gonna work.
I mean, it's like climbing Mount Everest. If you're 500 yards from the summit, sprinting that last 500 yards, and then tripping and falling all the way back down to the mountains, not gonna make it better. Just do what you did. Take one step at a time, slow and steady, just like you did, climbing up the mountain to get to the top when you're almost at the top. Don't do anything drastic or extreme at the end. And I'll tell you, it is like after you grind away at a goal for years and you hit it, it's almost an emotional letdown. I know this sounds weird. Like I won my show last year. I won the overall. I won my weight class. I beat everybody. And I won my pro card. And then I'm just kind of like,
I know what.
like, what do I do now?
Yeah. What's next?
It was like this huge exhale that happened afterwards, and I kind of felt lost for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. So
it was kind of like
and
stepping away
this is
from
part
being,
of that whole post goal momentum we were going to talk about, right? Like what happens after you win. So you got it. And then, so how did you refactor that, by the way? Like what realization did you have once you got your card, you won the contest? What happened?
I went on vacation and ate a bunch of food.
You rewarded yourself. There you go. No, that's cool.
I went to Mexico City.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely cool because you celebrated your win. You got your goal. So, and It's funny that you alluded to the "and now what" thing, which is such a human nature thing, right? Because you've been doing this goal for so long, you finally achieve it, and all of a sudden it's at this void, right? Like, what am I going to do with my days now?
Yeah, no, seriously, because I'm kind of an all or none guy.
Mhm.
I'm 100% in on achieving something, and then like once I'm done, like it's like, all right, I'm putting that on the shelf and I'm moving on to something else. And it's been kind of weird because I like really haven't been that motivated
Yeah.
to get it. I mean, I just had shoulder surgery, so it's hard to be motivated to get into the gym and stuff. But I'm like, I don't really have much left to prove in the bodybuilding world.
Well, but your motivation now is probably to heal properly for whatever, to be
You
ready
know,
for
and then
whatever you end up deciding is the next step.
this year I've been trying to invest my efforts into being a better coach to help my clients.
There you go. Okay.
I've been doing some mentorships with people and setting up new goals
Right.
and working towards those new goals. You know, and it's like I don't. People talk about retiring. I don't think I could ever fucking like. Even though I'm technically retired from my day job,
Mhm.
I don't. Retiring is just not in my DNA.
You're always going to want to work at something,
Yeah,
right?
I need something, some little goal I can chip away at. I thought about getting back to jujitsu and working on getting my black belt once my shoulder's healed.
I was gonna say, like, don't fuck up your shoulders
I mean, that's where I
after
fucked it
working
up to
so
begin with.
hard.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I would like to do one pro show, but I mean, yeah, it's sort of
Okay.
anticlimactic. It's weird. Like I spent all of this time and effort, you know, a decade, you know, really a lifetime of dreaming about that moment, and then that moment happens, and you're kind of like,
Yeah,
that's it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's so. Again, this goes back to what we were talking about here. So reflection. There's growth. There's self-realization. There's the oh English is failing me. That realization and that internalization. That's the word I'm looking for. When you internalize what you've done and it becomes part of you, and then that allows you to then what is next. To
I
define
don't
what is
recall who
next.
said it. I heard this saying somewhere before. You don't climb Mount Everest for the view at the top.
Yeah.
It's the journey, and you
Yeah.
know these things have always been about the journey and the lessons you learn and the experiences you have on the journey. To the top of these of these goals. You make friends. You learn things about yourself. You
Yeah.
discover. It's a journey of self discovery. It's not really about the ultimate end goal, really. It's that there is there the goal is a to me is sort of a celebration of the work that you've done.
Yeah, yeah. It's that ribbon on top of
Yeah,
uh, of the present, right? Like that final
yeah,
ribbon.
and I think that's where a lot of people fail coming out of the gate. Like I talk to a lot of young guys that say they want to be a pro bodybuilder, and the guys that tell me they want to be a pro bodybuilder and they'll do whatever it takes to be a pro bodybuilder, never do whatever it takes to be a pro bodybuilder.
Yeah,
they get
yeah,
they get so focused on, it's just like people say they want to be a millionaire, but
yeah, yeah,
then they don't want to do the work that's required to be a millionaire. They just want the end result. So like I think if you get too hung up on the end result and not fall in love with the process and the journey, that it's never going to happen. You have to
yeah.
fall
And
in
you
love.
have to fall in love with the journey because this is something you're going to be doing over and over and over again. So we have talked about using willpower in order to power through the difficult moments, but there has to be a little bit of love for what it
Oh,
is
you
that
have
you're
to be
doing.
passionate about it. If you're
Yeah,
grinding it away at something you hate, don't do that. Life's too
yeah.
short for that shit. Find something that you love. That's something I've tried to share with my kids. I'm like, I don't really care what you do,
Hmm.
but find the thing that you love and do it with passion.
Yeah.
You
Go all
know,
in.
I got to a point where like music just wasn't fun for me anymore. Like all the fun got sapped out of it, and I'm just like, I just don't want to do this anymore. I'm not enjoying it. The work that I'm putting in is not giving me any sort of reward anymore. And
Yeah.
so I put it on the shelf and I moved on to something else.
Makes sense. No, that makes absolute sense for sure. So, all right. So with that, one final thoughts and listener challenge. If you've listened this far, I am assuming that you're a person who wants to achieve something and you want to get that done. So, hey, go ahead and, define that one goal, whatever it is, break it into 3 steps. Take this as a thought exercise after watching this, and take action in the next day and see how it goes. Um, if you happen to do this, you can put it in the comments, send us an email, let us know. Paul and I are glad to answer questions. And yeah, thank you for listening, everybody. Paul, thank you
Yeah.
so much for bringing that insight and that wisdom and that experience to the podcast. And yeah, so everybody, thank you for listening. If you can, like, subscribe, ring the bell, comment, all that good stuff. And thank you so much. I hope there was some value added to your life and to your experience from this podcast. And if you have an idea of other topics similar to this that will help you become a better human and optimize yourself, let us know. And with that, thank you, Paul, and we are out.